My name is Lawrence Larry Chercasen. I'm from Unangax Island, the village of Nikolski, and I was born in March the 3rd, 1935. Well, the first memory I have is being dragged out of my house early in the morning. It was raining in Nikolski, and we ran to a dry lake bed behind the village, about a quarter of a mile, and we hid there. We had some GIs in Nikolski at the time that were building an observation post up on a place called High Hill. And we laid there for probably a couple, 3 hours. It was raining, it was wet. And I heard the words Japanese and bomb. And at the time, they didn't make much of an impression on me, because I was pretty young. I was 7 years old. And then the soldier came back. He came running back and says, "We can go to our houses and take things we want to take with us. But go where? Where could we go?" And so my dad took us to a ranch that was on the island, and we stayed in the chicken coop that day.
Wow.
With the smells and the animals. And my impression of that period was the dirty windows and the raindrops hitting the windows and the smell of the chickens. And we stayed there until dark and then came back home. And then there was a hill behind our village, probably a half a mile away, and we dug caves in that hill to hide in. We actually dug the dirt out of the hillside, and just big enough to hold 2 or 3 people. And I had a brother then, and my dad and myself, and my mother had died about 3 weeks before that. In giving birth to my sister, I believe, she hemorrhaged, and my sister was an infant.
Wow.
She was an infant child, and we stayed in those caves.
With your infant sister?
Yes, I don't know how she did it. I don't know where she got the milk to feed her. I don't know where my aunt got the milk, unless it was condensed milk. But she survived that.
Wow. And your sister's name and your dad's name and brother's name?
Okay, my dad's name is Alex Chercasen, and my sister's name is Lucy, and my brother has a good old Aleut Russian name. His name's Afinigan.
Finnegan.
Afenogin.
Okay.
He was named after my dad's favorite cousin. So, very brilliant man. We were taken to a place called Wrangell Institute. You'd probably know about that. And that's where my memory draws a blank for some reason. I don't know whether I didn't like it or I had some kind of traumatic experience with Wrangell, but I don't remember too much about Wrangell. I remember we lived in the tent, and one thing I remember, we went swimming on the beach one day in a place where they dug out gravel for some kind of a project, and the water was cold.
Wow. Yeah.
Another memory I have after that, I was on a ship, on a barge, and they were taking us to Ward Lake then. We built the barge. The man of the villages built the barge, I believe, and they took lumber to build some of the dwellings in the camp. Yeah. And Ward Lake was an old CCC camp, and there were a few houses there. I don't remember, 19 or something like that, 12, 19, but they were small, and they weren't. Most of them weren't big enough for a family, but we lived in them anyway.
Wow.
And my dad and I got a 2-room, I would have to call it it's not exactly a shack, but at least it was dry and warm. We had a stove in it. And then the men started to build houses for the rest of the people. Mm-hmm. And meanwhile, I think the women and children stayed, they stayed in a CCC building. It used to be a barracks for the people, for the crews. And the next memory that comes to me is losing 4 cousins. Mm. Those are things we had to face. We had to face there. Mm-hmm. We lost a lot of people, and the age was from 10 to 22, 23.
Wow.
They were young people.
From illness?
Pardon?
Illness? They were sick?
TB, pneumonia, flu, measles, mumps, you name it. Mm-hmm. It killed us because we weren't used to the diseases, you know. And it took our past and our future. It took our elders, which were our past, and it took our children, which were the future. Mm-hmm. And we had a gap there. And there's a gap that's going to be there forever because there was no way to replace it. But the thing I remember about Ward Lake the most is the loss of family, you know, cousins. Mm-hmm. And we were pretty close. The youngest one, Elmer, he was about 11 years old. And Walter and Robert, the older ones, I think Robert was 22 and Walter was about 24. Mm-hmm. And I used to see them a lot. I used to visit with them a lot. And one day I'm walking through Ward Lake and I didn't see Walter. Mm-hmm. And I asked my cousin Robert, I said, "Where's Walter?" And he said they sent him to a TB sanatorium in, I think it was in Juneau. Mm-hmm. And then one day I'm walking through the camp again and I didn't see Robert. And he was gone. He died. And I didn't even know about it. You know, somehow I lost touch, and while I lost touch with him, he passed away. Mm-hmm. There was things like that I remember about Ward Lake. And coming home was rough too. I think it was April 1945 when they took us back home to Nikolski. And the houses were in shambles. They were in shambles. The wallpaper in the walls, we didn't have sheetrock. So it was wallpaper. And all the wallpaper was hanging off the walls. You know, you walk into a house, you can imagine what it's like.
Creepy.
Yeah, it's dark, and it's wet, damp, the windows were broken, the doors were broken. And luckily there was several houses that were in pretty good shape in the village, and one of them happened to be that my Uncle Frank and Aunt Anna's house, and I stayed with him. My dad stayed in Southeast Alaska because he was still working. Mm-hmm. And he didn't come back till the following fall.
Wow.
And I spent that time with Ann and Frank.
Mm-hmm.